The valley runs southwest from the Judean hills towards the sea. It is a narrow valley, carved by a stream that turns brown in the dry season and green in the spring. The locals call it the Valley of Sorek. Sorek means choice vine. It is wine country. It is borderland. It is the place where two worlds press against each other, the Israelite highlands above, the Philistine plain below, and the people who live in the valley itself belong in some ways to neither. A woman lives here. We do not know her age. We do not know her face. We do not know whether she has a family or whether she lives alone. The text gives us almost nothing, just her name, her address, and a man who loved her. Her name is Delilah. She lives in the Valley of Sorek, and one evening 5 men come to her door. They are not ordinary men. They are the seranim, the 5 lords of the Philistine cities, the ruling council of the most powerful military force in the region, Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, Gath. 5 cities, 5 lords, and in their promises is silver, 1,100 pieces each. 5 men, 5 offers, 5,500 pieces of silver, if she can do one thing: find out where his strength comes from. Now here is the question no one asks about Delilah, not what she did, everyone knows what she did, but whether she knew what would happen next, whether she understood, fully, completely, what she was setting in motion when those men stood at her door with their silver and their desperation. We will come back to that question, but not yet, because before we can understand Delilah, we have to understand something about what it means to be consecrated to God from the womb and to spend a lifetime wrestling with what that means. This is not a story about a seductress. This is not a cautionary tale about dangerous women. This is not a simple villain origin story. This is the story of what happens when power, love, and money occupy the same room, and only one of them gets to leave. This is the story of Delilah, and of Samson, and of the God who was present in the ruins of both their lives, whether either of them knew it or not.
His name means son. In Hebrew, Shimshon, from Shemesh, the word for the sun. It is a name of light, of warmth, of something that cannot be contained. And from the very beginning, before this man ever drew breath, the sun metaphor was built into him, blazing, unreachable, and destined to set. His mother was barren. The text does not give her a name, which is one of the small cruelties of the ancient record, because she is, by any measure, the most spiritually perceptive person in the entire Samson narrative. An angel of God appears to her, not to her husband Manoah, to her. He tells her she will conceive and bear a son. He tells her that this son must never drink wine, never eat anything unclean, and never, never let a razor touch his head, because this child will be a Nazarite, set apart, consecrated, dedicated to God before the first breath. The Hebrew word is nazir. It means separated. It does not mean monk. It does not mean priest. It means a person drawn aside by God and marked visibly, publicly, permanently as belonging to something beyond the ordinary. Samson's hair was not a magic trick. It was a covenant made visible. It was the sign that said, this man is not his own. His strength was not in the follicles. His strength was in the consecration the hair represented. The day the hair went, the covenant was broken, not because of scissors, because of a choice.
But that comes later. Stay with me. The boy grows up strong, enormously, impossibly strong. He tears a lion apart with his bare hands. The text says it as casually as if he opened a jar, as one tears a young goat. He kills 30 Philistine men alone. He catches 300 foxes, ties torches to their tails, and burns the Philistine grain fields to the ground. He is not subtle. He is not strategic. He is a force with a calling, and a force with a pattern. The pattern is this: Samson keeps choosing the wrong relationships. His first love is a Philistine girl from Timnah. His parents protest. His father, Manoah, asks the question any father would ask: "Is there not a woman among your own people that you must go to the Philistines?" It is a reasonable question. Samson's answer is not reasonable. "Get her for me," he says. "She is right in my eyes." That phrase, "right in my eyes," echoes through the entire book of Judges like a warning siren. It is the book's theme verse in reverse. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. Samson is not an exception to the problem of his generation. He is its portrait. He marries the girl from Timnah. He poses a riddle at the wedding feast, built on a secret only he knows, about honey found in the carcass of the lion he killed. The Philistine men cannot solve it, so they threaten his wife. They tell her to get the answer from her husband, or they will burn her family's house down. She weeps before Samson for 7 days. 7 days of tears. "You don't really love me." And on the 7th day, he tells her. She tells them. He loses the bet. He kills 30 men to pay it. He goes home in fury. And while he is gone, his father-in-law gives his wife to his best man. Betrayed. By a woman he loved. By tears. By the space between intimacy and exposure. The wound is real. And he does not heal it. He just keeps moving. He goes to Gaza. The text says plainly that he is with a woman there. There is no softening of it. A man consecrated to God, set apart, spending himself in the stronghold of his enemies. He is strong enough to rip the city gates off their hinges and carry them 40 miles, which he does in a show of bravado that reads almost like defiance, as if he is trying to outrun the emptiness with feats of strength. Here is what most people miss about Samson. He is not a villain. He is not a cautionary tale in the simple sense. He is a man of genuine faith. The letter to the Hebrews places him among those who through faith stopped the mouths of lions. He prays. He calls on God. His final prayer in the ruins of the temple of Dagon is one of the most raw and honest prayers in all of Scripture. But he is also a man who never learned to guard his heart. He is ferociously strong on the outside. He is extraordinarily vulnerable in exactly one place, the intimate space between himself and the people he loved. He cannot hold a secret from someone whose tears are in front of him. He cannot maintain his consecration when affection is on the other side of the room. He is about to meet someone who understands that vulnerability completely.
Before we step into the Valley of Sorek and meet the woman who will change everything, if this kind of deep, careful look at Scripture is something that matters to you, consider subscribing. There is more of this coming. Stories that don't get told the way they deserve to be told. People who get flattened into symbols when their real lives were far more complex, far more human, and far more like yours than you might expect. Subscribe and let's keep going, because we have arrived at the valley, and the woman is waiting.
The Valley of Sorek sits in strange geography, not just physical, but social. It is the seam between two cultures. People who lived there would have spoken both languages, traded with both sides, known both sets of customs. A woman who lived there independently with her own house was unusual enough that scholars have argued for centuries about who she actually was. Was Delilah a Philistine? The text does not say. Was she an Israelite living in occupied territory? Also possible. Was she already connected to the Philistine lords before they arrived, or did they seek her out because they knew she had Samson's attention? We do not know. The text gives her name, her address, and 4 conversations with a man who loved her. That is all. And yet, somehow, 3,000 years later, her name is synonymous with betrayal. The name Delilah has become a category. A Delilah is a woman who destroys a man through intimacy. Poets use it, songwriters use it, preachers use it. All of them are working from the same story the Bible tells in less than 30 verses, and most of them are reading a villain into spaces the Bible deliberately left blank. Pay attention to this. The text never calls Delilah evil. It never calls her a seductress. It does not describe her beautiful, and the Bible is not shy about describing beautiful women when it wants to. It describes Samson's wife from Timnah as right in his eyes. It describes Rachel, Abigail, Bathsheba. It says nothing about Delilah's appearance, nothing about her character, nothing about her motivations beyond the fact that the lords of the Philistines came to her with silver and she accepted their commission. What she felt about Samson, whether she loved him, whether she was afraid of him, whether she saw him as a protector or a liability, the text leaves entirely open. And that silence is not an accident. It is an invitation to sit with the complexity. Now, the silver. 1,100 pieces per lord, 5 lords, 5,500 pieces of silver total. In the book of Hosea, a wife is redeemed for 15 pieces. In the book of Exodus, the fine for a slave's death is 30 pieces. The price that Judas will later be paid for the Son of God is 30 pieces. 5,500 pieces. This is not a bribe. This is a purchase. This is the kind of money that changes a life, that buys land, that buys freedom, that relocates you out of the contested borderland and into safety. The lords of the Philistines are not asking Delilah to take a small risk for a small reward. They are offering her everything she would need to never be afraid again. She asks Samson the question, directly, without pretense, "Please tell me where your great strength lies." And here is what the text records without comment. Samson does not leave. He does not say, "That is an odd question from someone who loves me." He answers her, falsely, but he answers. He tells her that if he is bound with 7 fresh bowstrings, he will become as weak as any man. She binds him. She calls the Philistines waiting in the next room. Samson snaps the bowstrings like thread. She asks again. He lies again, this time new ropes. She binds him. The Philistines rush in. He breaks the ropes like they were nothing. She asks a third time. He tells her to weave his hair into a loom. She does. The Philistines rush in. He tears the loom from the wall and walks out with it trailing behind him. 3 times. He is tested 3 times. He lies 3 times. And 3 times he comes back. He stays. He does not leave the valley, does not end the relationship, does not say, "Clearly someone is trying to have me captured."
He keeps returning to the house in the borderland, to the woman in the contested valley, to the one place in his life where his strength means nothing at all. And this is where it gets remarkable, because it is Delilah who speaks the language of love. How can you say you love me when your heart is not with me? You have mocked me these 3 times, and you have not told me where your great strength lies. She presses him day after day. The text says his soul was vexed to death. The Hebrew suggests an exhaustion that goes deeper than annoyance. He is worn through. The strongest man alive, reduced to exhaustion, not by an army, not by a lion, not by 1,000 Philistines with weapons, by words, by the daily presence of someone asking him to finally let him in. And he does. He tells her everything. He tells her about the Nazirite vow, about the hair, about the God that set him apart before he was born. He tells her the deepest truth about himself, the secret that was never supposed to leave his lips, and he tells it in the context of love. A razor has never come upon my head, for I have been a Nazirite to God from my mother's womb. If my head is shaven, my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man. Like any other man. That phrase lands heavily, because what Samson is confessing is not just a physical secret. He is confessing a longing, the longing of the consecrated, the set apart, the ones called to be different, to be, for one moment, ordinary, to rest in a valley, in a house, with a woman who loves him, without the weight of consecration on his shoulders. He has been carrying the sun his whole life, and he is tired.
She lulls him to sleep. The text does not say how. It simply says she lulled him to sleep on her knees, and then she called for a man to come and shave the 7 locks of his head. She then began to torment him, and his strength left him. She called out, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." He woke. He said, the text records it with terrible simplicity, "I will go out as at other times and shake myself free." He had done it before. 3 times before, in this very house, he expected to shake himself free. He did not know the Lord had left him. That sentence is the most devastating line in the entire Samson narrative. Not that his hair was cut, not that Delilah spoke to the lords, not even that he was captured. The devastation is this: he woke up and did not know. He reached inside himself for the thing that had always been there, the fire, the power, the presence, and it was gone, and he could not feel the absence. He expected strength and found emptiness, and could not tell the difference until the Philistines were on him. They seize him. They gouge out his eyes. They take the strongest man who ever lived, the man who killed 1,000 soldiers with a donkey's jawbone, who carried city gates up a mountain, who tore lions apart with his hands, and they set him to grinding grain in the prison at Gaza. Grinding grain was women's work, slave work, the lowest, most humiliating labor in the ancient world. Samson, the Sun Man, the Nazirite, the judge of Israel for 20 years, walking circles in the dark, pushing a millstone, in chains. And Delilah? She vanishes. After this moment, her name does not appear again. She is not at the prison. She is not at the temple feast. She is not in the crowd. She is not in the final chapter. The narrative moves on to Samson's captivity, to his humiliation, to his hair beginning to grow, and Delilah is nowhere.
We do not know if she spent the silver. We do not know if she heard what happened to his eyes. We do not know if she was in Gaza the day the temple of Dagon came down, if she was in the crowd watching the blind man be led out to perform for the festival, if she recognized his voice when he called to the servant holding his hand, "Let me feel the pillars on which the house rests, that I may lean against them." The Bible leaves her in silence, and that silence is the most honest thing the story ever says. Here is the question that silence asks you. Think of the last time you handed something over that you could not take back. Not necessarily to a person, maybe to a moment, a conversation that ended a friendship, a decision made in exhaustion that cost more than you knew, a door you walked through and could not walk back out of, the email you sent, the word you said, the thing you chose in a moment that felt like relief, that you understood afterward as loss. Delilah's story is not just Delilah's story. It is the story of the irreversible moment, the moment after which everything is different and nothing can be undone. And here is what God does with the irreversible moment. The text says Samson's hair began to grow while he was in the prison, while he was grinding grain in the dark, while he was blinded and humiliated, and as far from consecration as a person can get, his hair was growing back, quietly, without fanfare, without a vision or a visitation, just the slow, relentless faithfulness of a God who had not finished with a man who had failed repeatedly, spectacularly, and completely. The lords of the Philistines gather for a great feast to their god Dagon. They bring Samson out to perform for them. 3,000 men and women on the roof, the rulers and the crowds, a celebration of Philistine power and Philistine victory. And in the middle of it all, a blind man asks a servant boy to let him lean against the pillars. He prays. The prayer is raw and exhausted and entirely human. He asks God to remember him just once more. Let me feel the pillars. Let me lean against them. And God answers. The pillars fall. The temple collapses. Those Samson killed at his death were more than those he had killed during his life. The sun goes down, and it takes the darkness with it.
3 things I want you to take from this. The first, Delilah was not the cause of Samson's fall. She was the final chapter of a story he had been writing for decades. Long before she appeared, he was already giving his secrets to women whose tears moved him. Long before Sorek, there was Timnah. Long before the silver, there was the pattern. Delilah did not create Samson's vulnerability. She found it. And the question the story leaves behind is this: what pattern am I living that, if the wrong moment finds it, will cost me everything? The second, the thing that undoes us is almost never sudden. It is the slow press of what we keep choosing. Samson was not overcome by a single moment. He was overcome by years of doing what was right in his own eyes. Years of returning to the place he knew was dangerous because it felt like the only place that felt like rest. One wrong choice rarely destroys a life. The pattern of choices, the quiet daily return to what we know we should not return to, that is what breaks something open. And the third, hold on to this one. God did not abandon Samson in the grinding house. That is the astonishing thing. Not that Samson was strong, not even that he killed more in his death than in his life. The astonishing thing is the hair.
quietly, in the dark, in the prison, while Samson was at his lowest and most broken, his hair was growing. The God who called him before he was born had not finished. The consecration had not expired. The name was not done being spoken over this particular, difficult, vulnerable, complicated man. Whatever grinding house you are in right now, whatever dark, humiliating, circular thing your life has become, the hair is growing. You may not feel it, you may not be able to measure it, but the God who calls people before they are born does not abandon them in the grinding house. The name is not done with you yet. So here is my question, and I genuinely want to know your answer. Leave it below. What surprised you most about this story? Was it Delilah, the woman the Bible refuses to villainize? Or was it Samson himself, the consecrated man who kept returning to the thing that broke him? Tell me, because I think your answer says something true about where you are right now. And if this kind of storytelling is something you want more of, subscribe. There are more stories like this one. People whose real lives were harder and stranger and more hopeful than the version you heard growing up. We are going to tell them. The valley runs southwest from the Judean hills toward the sea. A woman lived there once in a house on the margin of two worlds. 5 men came to her door. A man she loved told her his most sacred secret, and the most powerful man alive woke up one morning and did not know the Lord had left him. The sun went down, the pillars fell, and even in the ruin, in the dark, in the chains, a name was spoken. And God remembered.